Hello everyone. So last video we talked about a general way to set up modding in Endless Legend. And in this video this is just going to be a short video about the schema in Endless Legend. So Endless Legend modding uses XML, and XML is a word-based language. And one of the consequences of that is, well, one of the benefits of it is that you can kind of use any type of program to run it. And what I mean by that is that you can even use Notepad to work in XML. Now, I really don't recommend using Notepad. I instead recommend using a better program like Notepad++, where it's more organized and you can see like the different lines of code in a clear and orderly color. So if you just type in Google, you can see the different versions of Notepad++ and just go to their website and download any version you like. It doesn't necessarily matter what you download. It doesn't necessarily have to be Notepad++, but just some program that you feel comfortable with that will allow you to work in XML at a comfortable environment. Now, going into the main topic, schemas are essentially the database of your mod, and what it means is that essentially the game will look at your schema file or schema document, and it will determine which sort of files to go into and add to the game and which ones to essentially not add. And I guess if you're kind of confused by that description, a good example of this is think of this as a menu to a restaurant. So if we were at an Italian restaurant, you would have different sections like pasta, pizza, all these different sections, and inside each of these sections will be a different dish. Like this could be linguine, this could be Alfredo, different types of pasta and different types of just dishes in general. And so this is the menu. And think of the computer as a customer. Whatever isn't listed on the schema, the customer won't, or the customer or the computer, depending on if you're using the real life or an analogy in this case, they won't be able to recognize what's on it, and they won't perform their action. For the customer case, they won't buy anything. For the computer's case, they won't implement it into the program. And so the way of how you can implement the schema is by going in and sort of adding it like this. So if we were to have a schema, you would have the basic things. You'd have a name that say that it's modding, the type, which is extension. I'm not going to get into too details about the types of modding, but most of the time you're going to be using extension, which is essentially just that your mod can run with other mods. Author, title, image, and a general description. But the way of how it actually calls the other files in is through database plugins. And now, for most files, you're going to have it where it's a data place, or common files in this case. You're going to have a database plugin. It's going to have a file path, and that's going to be how you sort of reference it. A better example would be in my simulations area that I have, where you can see you have the faction, and then you have a file path. You do have extra types, which these are things that more you kind of can like add more to, and it like helps with the sort of calling it from the computer. I'm not entirely sure about the what the extra types necessarily do, but the main thing that you're most of the time going to be working on is the elements. So for GUI and simulation, you have GUI and simulation elements. And so instead of listing each individual element, instead what you're going to do is that you're just going to say GUI elements with a star. And what this will mean is that this is telling the computer that you're referencing every single GUI element inside this that is inside brackets. And the star is essentially a wild card. Basically just saying that you can, that anything that's in brackets, that's what it is going to be referencing. So if we go back into here, this is essentially kind of just all the different things. Like another example about the file path is that you'll have unit design, and you will see that it's file path just unit design, and then file path unit design is because you might have a unit design sort of for a specific faction. Like we have, I think, unit design in, I don't remember where my unit designs are, but that's just sort of that's sort of like how the file gets recognized. And so yeah, that's kind of like what a schema is. So for this mod, to show you what I'm doing so that way there's no confusion in my next video, I'm going to be taking the Kazanji faction schema and pasting it in here. And I'm going to be opening this up. Now in Notepad++, although they have the exact same like code and everything inside of it, because this is in a different file, this is going to be recognized as a different sort of section. This is just something to keep in mind when modding in the future and working on Notepad++. The other thing to sort of notice is that when changing the name of it, you will notice that this will turn red, which when it turns red, it means that like you made a change to it that isn't saved. And if you sort of save it, you will notice that in the file it will have another sort of schema, or it could be really another type of document, because this can happen to simulations and GUIs as well, and any type of XML document. And it will sort of have like a replacement of like the original sort of file. So I'm just going to delete this because we really don't need this. And yeah, this is our schema. The only other thing that I'm going to sort of add to this is just sort of change the calling of the image file to be this right here. And so yeah, this is just going to be a short video about schemas, and next video we're going to be going into making faction traits.